Good morning, everybody. Got your coffee? I got mine. So, listen, yesterday was one of the worst days I had in a long time. I started the day off by losing my wallet, and then the day, it just went down here from there. Everything that could go wrong yesterday went wrong. By the time 4 p.m. rolled around, I was so exhausted. I quit my day, I went to bed, and now here I am up again. I've been asleep that long. It was horrible, y'all. I will spare you the details, but I did end up finding my wallet, though. You would think that the day would have gotten better behind that, but it did not. It continued to decline and rapidly. Mm. So I'm behind in some thank yous. I want to thank you to Gilda, say thank you to Gilda. Gilda is just always so supportive and just always there. And I'm going to tell you at the end of these thank yous why these thank yous are so important. And I want to say thank you to Anita and Somali. And I want to say thank you to Carlton and Gail and Bethany and Lauren. Thank you so much for making my lives easier. Now, we all know that I left TikTok to come over here to YouTube, to monetize YouTube so that, I could make some money, because I need it. And my family needs it. My household needs it. And to be honest, I'm not doing any better over here on YouTube. My content isn't for everyone. It just isn't. And I am just, like I said before, I am just really not the kind of person that wants to be sensational, and I don't want to lie, and I don't want to be dishonest, and I don't want to talk about things that don't matter. So the people that follow me have to be about those things too. And we are few and far in between. People who can listen to hard truths and people who talk about the things that actually really matter instead of celebrities and pop culture. And don't get me wrong, politics matter, but politics can be spoken about in a way that, is so sensationalized, and people can talk about certain aspects of politics that really just, it doesn't really matter, and it's just all, you know what I mean? And to talk about everyday things that affect our lives and affect the world, people really don't want to hear that. Most people would prefer to escape that, as a matter of fact. And so, I don't tend to do very well. I got my first YouTube payment November 21st. It was for a whopping $118 and I think like 90 something cent. And mind you, that was 3 months because the threshold is $100. So until you've made $100, they won't pay you. And so it took me 3 months to make that. And it almost paid my phone bill. So nevertheless, I'm still grateful. So when you guys send me coffee money, or you put little notes and you say, hey, do what you want to do with it, reparations, whatever. That is the money that I use to pay my prescription co-pays. I'm going to tell you something else, and maybe I shouldn't, but it's the truth. It's also money that I use to have a shopper shop my groceries, because remember when that top shooting happened? I have not been okay with going inside of a grocery store since then. I'm going to try not to get emotional because I don't even know where this came from. But that was how that affected me. This is how, in real time, how racism affects Black people in our minds and our spirits. I've gone into a grocery store since then, but never without my husband. And I shouldn't have watched the video. I did watch the video. I watched the video because I wanted to understand that level of hatred, but you'll never be able to understand that level of hatred. How someone can just look at you and because you are black, hate you that much. And two women in that video, I think about all the time. I think about the first black lady that in the parking lot. And she was just putting her groceries in the back of her car. And then she was gone. And to watch the way bullets that powerful struck her and jerked her body, and then she just fell and she was gone. Doing something as normal as getting groceries on a Saturday of all days. And then there was another woman. She looked so much like me. She reminded me of me. And it was a Saturday and he had already killed her. But when he came and circled back and she was lying on the floor and just for good measure, he lit that aisle up again. And one bullet went into, you could see where it went into her head. And she was a big woman like me. And the bullet was so powerful, it jerked her whole body forward. You know, like upward and then downward. And I will never forget that. I'll never forget that. I pray for their souls all the time. I do. And as a result, I literally can't go into a grocery store by myself without catching a panic attack. And so when you all cash at me or Venmo me and you say, do whatever you want to do with it, that's what I do with it. I save myself that emotional, mental, spiritual harm of having to go inside of a grocery store. And mind you, I'm someone who carries a firearm. But that's what that did to me. It did. And, you know, so that's why I wanted to say thank you. Because when I say you make my life easier, you actually do. And that's the real of it. That's just the truth. I also want to thank the people, every single person that has ever sent anything into the curbside pantry. So many people are using that pantry. And you're helping so many people. And it's wonderful to see and experience. It is. I thank you. I'm just filled with gratitude this morning because thank you. I realize that you don't have to give a fuck, and I realize that you don't have to care, but you do. You are the kinds of people that I wish were in my real life instead of the actual users and abusers that surround me on a daily. Thank you. Okay, enough of all that. With that said, remember my last video where we were talking about that guy that killed that CEO? Every time they do a health update, not a health update, but an update, the way a little bit of panic sets into me because I don't know what that says about me because I want him to get away. I do. I do. I actually want him to get away with it. And I explained why in that video. I expressed my feelings, and, the people who were trying to admonish the rest of us for not really caring have quieted. I guess you all have done very good jobs of explaining your positions. This man, Brian Thompson, he killed a lot of people. And let me tell you, a couple of you in the comments said, did you hear about Blue Cross Blue Shield saying that they're not going to pay for anesthesia if your surgery runs too long? Well, they reversed that. They reversed that. You say, oh, y'all gunning down CEOs in the street? And then they said that this whole thing sparked outrage amongst Americans with the healthcare system. It didn't spark outrage. People have always been outraged. People have always been outraged and expressing outrage over what this healthcare system does to America. We wanted universal healthcare. Barack Obama tried to get us there. But once again, so many poor folks let the fancy schmancy people at the top convince them that everybody else was their problem except for them. And they're robbing us all blind and killing us with the stroke of a pen or typing in denial on a claim. Imagine having to die because you get cancer. It happens every day because you can't afford your treatment. Imagine not being able to breathe because you can't afford your asthma medication. It happens all the time. I remember when I first got hired in as a seniority employee with Chrysler, we didn't have any copays. And then something happened in the contract, and then we had to pay $2 copays. And I was infuriated. I was so mad. My union steward said, girl, do you know how blessed you are? Fuck that. I was mad. And mind you, I was just a young kid. And, but I was still mad that I had to pay $2 per medication. And I didn't even have lots of medications back then. But my kids, something always goes wrong with them. They're kids. They catch some virus, they catch some flu. And, and that was the extent of it for me back then. But I remember this one particular time. Something was going on with one of my kids. I forget what. It was so long ago. Mind you, my sons are in their 30s now. But they were young then. I don't know. Maybe I'll put them at maybe 4 and 6 at the time, and maybe younger than that. And I had to take one of them to see the doctor after I got off work. So I got off work, went to the babysitter, picked them both up, then came back, and my kids had the same pediatrician I had. Isn't that wild? But they did. Same pediatrician. I had my pediatrician till I was 16. I didn't want another doctor. And the only reason why I had her that long is because I didn't want another doctor, but it was a real big deal. Maybe I'll tell you that story some other time when it's relevant. It's not right now. But anyway, we go and we see the doctor, and she prescribes him something, and we're standing in line. And I mean, we're standing because the pharmacy had a real nice clinic. Pharmacy was always in that clinic, and they always had every medicine that they ever prescribed. You didn't have to go elsewhere. I can't ever recall having to go to Perry or Rite Aid or any of those stores back in the day to get a prescription. He always had everything we needed. And so we were waiting and then I finally sat down because I got 2 kids. They're antsy and crawling all over me and everything. And I'm tired, and a half hour goes past. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, And there's this little old man, and he and the lady at the window, they are the pharmacist. They are real cozied up talking to each other, and they're kind of whispering. And I'm thinking, what is going on? For real now, because I gotta go. And I get closer, And I got one of my kids in my arms, and I get closer and closer, and turns out this is what was going on. He was trying, this old man, this elderly gentleman, had all these medications, and he was trying to determine which ones he could afford and how much he could afford. And she was helping him with that. And once I understood what the problem was, that this man literally couldn't pay for his medications, I paid for his medications. I did. I paid for his medications. I had enough money in my pocket to pay for them and for my kids. And we left, and that stuck with me, obviously, for a very long time, because it was the first time that I was ever clued in that there are Americans that cannot pay for their medications, can't afford to pay for their medications. I never knew that those conditions existed for people. And mind you, my kids are in their 30s. This is when they were little kids, you know? So this has always been the case here in America. Working all your life, excuse me, working all your life, and then at the end of it, not being able to pay for your medications, because people like Brian Thompson create those conditions for hardworking Americans. And we're supposed to feel bad that this man got gunned down after he done killed all these people. Y'all have a good day. Tell me what you think in the comments.